Welcome to today's video, Mark 9 verse 29 explained. And he said unto them, This kind can come forth by nothing, but by prayer and fasting. In Mark 9 verse 29, Jesus is speaking directly to his disciples after they had tried but failed to cast out an unclean spirit from a child. The disciples were puzzled as to why they were unable to perform the miracle, prompting Jesus to teach them an important spiritual lesson. Jesus clarifies to his followers that certain spiritual battles require more than just faith or good intentions. He explains clearly that some situations, particularly difficult or deeply rooted spiritual struggles, can only be resolved through prayer combined with fasting. Prayer, in this context, signifies deep, personal communion with God. It is not merely about asking for something, it involves persistent, humble communication and surrender to God's will. Jesus teaches here that prayer creates a spiritual connection, allowing God's power to manifest strongly and clearly in challenging situations. Fasting, the second element mentioned by Jesus, involves voluntarily abstaining from food or certain comforts to focus entirely on seeking God. By fasting, believers show God their sincerity, humility, and complete dependence upon Him. It is an act of self-denial that strengthens faith and spiritual discipline. Together, prayer and fasting signify a powerful spiritual tool given to believers to handle complex spiritual challenges. Jesus is essentially saying that believers cannot rely solely on their own strength, past experiences, or superficial methods when dealing with deeply spiritual issues. True victory in spiritual battles requires deeper spiritual disciplines and total dependence on God's power and wisdom. This verse also points out the necessity of recognizing our limitations as human beings. There are struggles and spiritual confrontations that cannot be overcome merely by human wisdom or effort. Jesus emphasizes that spiritual victory comes from a lifestyle deeply connected to God, which includes regular, fervent prayer and intentional fasting. Furthermore, this teaching emphasizes humility. The disciples might have been tempted to rely on their previous successes or their proximity to Jesus to guarantee victory in every situation. Jesus gently reminds them, and us, that spiritual authority and power come from a humble and dedicated relationship with God, not from personal confidence or past achievements. In practical terms, Mark 9 verse 29 encourages every believer to evaluate their spiritual habits and disciplines. It invites us to consider whether we rely too heavily on our own strength or past experiences instead of consistently seeking deeper communion with God through dedicated prayer and fasting. Therefore, Mark 9 verse 29 is a powerful reminder of the necessity of cultivating an intimate and disciplined spiritual life. It teaches believers to approach difficult spiritual situations with humility, faith, prayer, and fasting, trusting fully in God's unlimited power rather than their own limited human abilities.